Hey everyone, and welcome back to Leslie and Lily, the podcast for business owners as they are learning how to market themselves in the digital sphere. My name is Leslie, owner of Lily Rose DMA. Today is going to be a special podcast. I'm excited because I have fellow marketer Chris Burns on the show today, and we are going to dive into his story about how he became a marketer, and we're also going to give you guys some tips on how you can market yourself online. Hey Chris, how you doing today?
Hey, how we doing? Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So, Chris, I ask this question on every single one of my podcasts. It's always, did you know that you were going to be a marketer? Like, we're just going to dive in right away. Is this what you went to
Let's do it.
school for? Or how did you get into marketing in the first place?
I love the question. And I always say, when people talk about this, like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up either. And I'm 41 years old. I don't know that I knew what I wanted to do. I go back to this kind of interesting story that a couple people have asked me this recently. And so I feel like I've said it now a few times, but where it started was back in high school. So I think I was a
Mhm.
senior and I needed to take an elective, which of course I was looking for slacker classes. And I think it was my guidance counselor said, "Hey, Chris, you should look at marketing." And I
Mm.
think literally I'm like, what the heck? Although I was probably thinking, what the hell is that? And she said, well, let me just tell you, you get to work in the school store. So you get to sell things and we'll learn about the retail side of things, which I worked in a family business. So I already kind of knew that. I was like, oh, so there's some retail and marketing and sales. That sounds interesting. She said, then you can compete in the DECA competition. I'm like, well, what's DECA? And she explained that. And I said, well, okay, I've been around sales and customer service, so I like that. And
Mm.
then you get to take a class trip to New York City. And I'm like, what? And
Right?
as a small town kid from Wisconsin, I'm like, yeah, I don't bright lights, let's go. I want to do that. And so kind of fast forward, I really loved DECA. I loved marketing. And then I decided, well, that's what I want to study in college. So I did that and kind of worked in a family business for a couple of years. And kind of looking back, I mean, I've been around marketing now for over 20 years, and it's
Mm.
always been a big part of, if not exactly what I did. And I want to throw in a part about where things changed for me was starting to work in an agency. As I thought I knew
Mm.
marketing, I thought I've been around it for a long time. I mean, I started when social media for business pages came out shortly after I graduated. So I've been around this for a long time. And the agency world really opened up my eyes to, okay, now we're marketing at a whole new level with
Yeah.
strategy and ad campaigns and elevated content. And that's when I became an entrepreneur at the same time. I had made many attempts at entrepreneurship before that. We can all joke about that, but that allowed me and it kind of gave me additional confidence. But it also
Mhm.
allowed me to build my business off the back of Google and Facebook and Instagram and all these other awesome tools we have today. And I was able to teach my clients, hey, I would not do this because this doesn't work. Or, hey, I've seen this work with my clients in the nonprofit space, or I've seen this work in my
Mm.
business. And I was a real practitioner and real consultant. And that's what inspired me to eventually go off on my own, build my, I don't want to call it agency, but marketing company and consultancy. And yeah, I'm a marketer, true and true. And I love what I do.
Did you always start out with the internet? You said that when you were doing it, like it was just coming in for business. So did you also do any like any print things, or was it mainly online?
Yeah, early in my years when I was working around a family business, I that's all I knew was traditional marketing. And
Mm.
so um it was a lot of billboards, phone books, which like
Yeah.
my 15-year-old has no idea what a phone book is.
What is that?
Yeah, newspaper ads. I mean, we would spend thousands of dollars on
Right.
newspaper ads, billboards, radio, TV, and we could not quantify any of that. So looking back, it's very interesting because the billboard companies will say, well, approximately X number of people drive by this in a day. And there's variables in weather and tourism. And it's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, all right. And I've even seen it where or you're supposed to know when your TV ad is going to run. Like maybe during the news, you watch the news, you're like, well, my ad didn't pop up. Like you see, you can't control that. Or I've seen it where our ad got cut off a couple times. You're like, well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have to pay for that. And it's human error, right? It happens. It's no big deal. But with digital, you almost don't ever have those problems. And of course, you can set the budget. You know what you're going to spend, and you can quantify everything. So yes, I remember that. And if we were to fast forward a little bit, when I was graduating from college at the time, all I really remember in the digital marketing was you had a website. There was, I think YouTube was a thing, but businesses weren't really using it that way. And then
Mhm.
you had Google Ads and email marketing. So I mean that those were
Yeah.
really the three main components. Some people had blogs, but that was still kind of a like, okay, well, what are we doing with this? Um, so yeah, it's a funny how it's changed so much over the last 20 plus years.
Yeah, it has 100%. A lot of what I do deals with marketing online, especially with social media, as well as I always advise my clients to continue to have an email list and continue to market to people that way, because you never know if you're banned or suspended or like, is this going to be around? And these people who have signed up, like, they actually want to hear from you. But what would you say if someone is just starting to market themselves, if they wanted to market themselves online, where would you recommend them to start, if anywhere?
Yeah, good question. If you're just starting out, I'm going to take this back one step further and say that whether you're marketing yourself as a personal brand or you're marketing your business as a startup, I would be very intentional about creating a strategy.
Mhm,
So when I speak to businesses, and I'm very fortunate that I get to do a lot of public speaking, not uncommon, a room of 100, that five people will raise their hands and say, "Yeah, I've got a strategy." I've never seen even 10% of the room raise their hand. And then I'll
mhm,
say something like, okay, well, quick show of hands, who has it in document form, which means you actually have a real strategy. Three or four more hands will go down. And I'm not kidding, Leslie. It's unlikely more than five people in the room have a strategy in document form. And then I don't even know if more than two people in the room actually use it. And so by having a strategy, what that does for you, a simple one, hopefully, is that you have a North Star. So
mhm,
you then have some goals and objectives that you can look at. And every day, whether it's tacked up next to your monitor or you have it somewhere in your calendar, you have it somewhere, you can use that to say, okay, well, these are my goals. So I can do these three or four things to achieve goal A, and I can do these two or three things to achieve goal B. And it gives you direction, it gives you purpose. And when you have those things, you typically operate with more confidence
mhm,
and typically a better mindset as well, which is very important in the entrepreneurial space. And so that's what I would do. I'd build a strategy. I'd also make sure you have some smart, measurable, quantifiable goals.
mhm,
So, not made up goals, but things that are, maybe you're saying, I want to achieve this much in revenue. I want to achieve this much in web traffic. You determine what's important to you and just
mhm.
choose three. You can achieve five goals. I don't care if you have two or three people working for you. That's a
I
lot.
love it. I love it.
Yeah, and I think that's our problem though as entrepreneurs is we overcomplicate things. So make it
Mhm,
simple because when things are simple, they're less stressful and burdensome. And then what I want you to do is I want you to work on the implementation side, meaning I want you to block time in your calendar every week. And maybe it's a two or three chunks of 45 minutes or hour, whatever works for you. And use that to, in most cases, it's going to be for social media where
mhm,
you can batch content in Canva or whatever tool you're using. And you can then do things like respond to comments and respond to messages, just so that, again, you're very intentional, you have undisrupted time because if you don't make time, and that's the key thing here, you will not find it. You will not, because as entrepreneurs, we've got a lot of distractions. We've got a lot of
yes.
salespeople that want to talk to us, and then we have this long list of things to do, like my notebook to my left here. That is, you look at it and you feel stressed out, and so
Mhm,
that to me is where I would start. Now, Leslie, if your question pertains more to what should I do on in terms of branding my business or myself, I would say focus on more on your personal brand than your
Mhm.
actual brand in the beginning, because people connect with people, not so much
Yes.
with businesses. So think about this for a moment. Of all the connections I have, and this could be any platform, and I'm on most of them, I don't really have an affinity or a relationship with any business. I don't care if it's my favorite shoe company, clothing, electronics. Like, I'm a big Apple guy, but I don't really have any affinity to the brand itself. But I have affinity and I have relationships with people, individuals
Mhm.
who maybe work for one of those companies. And so what happens when you have a personal brand, it's just like your email that you mentioned, which was an awesome example. You can take it with you anywhere you go. Whether you
Mhm.
change jobs or you decide to close your business or sell your business, you will always have that personal brand. And that personal brand gives you a platform to talk about maybe a nonprofit you support, maybe somebody you want to endorse, maybe you want to help get the word out about an event you're going to be speaking at. It gives you so much latitude and longitude to do a lot of these things. And then once you have that relationship, as a byproduct, people are going to want to reciprocate. They're going to want to engage with you. They're going to be interested potentially in buying your products and services. And so, if you can start to build maybe in tandem a personal brand with a business brand, I think that's where you're going to find a lot of success. So, if the answer the listeners are looking for is what platform should I be doing this on? I'm a really big advocate of LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of success growing my personal brand, and I would really, really recommend that because the circle of influence, the type of discretionary income these individuals have, um, definitely a high level of education, certainly a high education that is. You get you can see people's industry, location, job title, company. You actually have more data about the individual you want to connect with than you do on
Yes.
Facebook. And by the way, there's a lot less negativity. There's a lot less just negative and spam in general. Every
Yes.
platform has it, but I just love it for so many reasons. And then you certainly don't want to neglect the other platforms, but I would say just find a couple. You can't do it all, nor should you try, because you can't be everything to everybody. But find two, maybe three platforms for your personal brand where your audience is, and just be consistent. That is really the name of the game, and it will start to pay dividends after a few months. I promise.
Oh, you said so much, and I wanna touch on a few things. I love that you started with strategy because the truth is a lot of us think that we know where we're going, but until you actually have to write it down, then you'll know if you know where you're going
Hmm.
or not. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I kind of, and I think that it should be this way, but you're like, oh wow, I guess I don't know as much as I thought I did. So forcing yourself to write it down is not a bad thing. Forcing yourself to actually sit down and say, hey, what are my goals? As you said, like, are they quantifiable? Can I actually see something other than a vanity metric of I have this many likes of on a post? Is this like converting? Is it turning into a sale? So we need to be able to see one, how many sales do you actually want? And depending on what you like, what your business is, you might have different business goals, right? So it could be brand awareness. It could be that you really are just trying to get people to come to your pages and your websites. It could also be that you're trying to get people to eventually buy your products and services. Something else that you said that I want to reiterate to the audience as well is the fact that you are your brand, and you have to understand that people are being sold to every single day, so much so that the consumers 20 years ago compared to the consumers now are completely different. Everyone is has a protective wall up. Like, they're so used to seeing ads, they're so used to people saying, "Hey, buy this, do this," that if you come to them only as a salesperson, then they're going to shut you off more quickly. But if you come to them as a person, if you are being social, if you are actually saying, "Hey, like, this is me, this is what I'm about," and I have a digital footprint where you actually can see that I am who I say I am. I'm not a robot. This is a cause that I believe in, that I've always believed in, or maybe this is something new. People are trying to search more for a human connection through all the noise, through all of social media as well. So being able to get yourself out there to show people who you are, what it is that you like, will also endear you to them as well. And when it comes to platforms, what I usually tell my clients, a lot of people are like, well, what should I be on? First and foremost, not every platform is for you. That's
Right.
the truth. And what you did say that I do tell people about is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is fun for all of the reasons that you said, and it isn't super saturated. People are kind of confused about LinkedIn. Most people only go on it when they're looking for a job. And so you don't have as much competition or as much noise for real estate. You can have a post that can be seen by so many people that will be reposted, and you have a higher chance of yourself, your brand, your business being seen. So LinkedIn is always a good place, but for those of you guys listening, this is when it comes down to really knowing who your customer is. And if your customer is in the 14 to 18-year-old range, they're most likely not going to be on LinkedIn, right? So you have
Right.
to know who they are and what platforms this age range will most likely be on. But for most people, if you are a business owner, you should be on LinkedIn, and it's a great and wonderful place to be in, especially to collaborate. Because, as Chris said, I mean, you can get like a CEO's email address. Like you have, like you see
Yeah.
their profile, you know who the hiring manager is. You can see, you can directly talk to people where you couldn't in the past, which I think is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick trick too, Leslie, is
Mhm.
if you are trying to find contact information, when you're connecting out, this will be kind of a two for one. When I connect with people, I typically don't send them any message or anything, but I also don't cold message people. So if my intention is to connect with them and send them something, like maybe I want them on my podcast or I want to do something, that's one thing, but I don't ever lead with a cold message because it's less than 1% success rate.
Mhm.
So, if you want their contact information, I use a third-party tool. It's a kind of a data scraping tool. It's also a database where you can go and get contact information. I think it's $100 a month, called seamless.io or seamless.ai, I forget. I think it's AI. And you can get an extension for Chrome. And then when you go into LinkedIn and you click on someone's profile, there'll be a small little bar that pops up in the upper right hand corner, and you can verify their email and their phone number. Email is usually pretty accurate, but the phone number is often a company number, not a cell phone.
Mhm.
But even still, whenever you're connecting with people, whether you have their direct email or not, never lead with a sales pitch or an ask for a meeting because you will have a very low success rate. So focus on building that connection. And if you're going to ask for something, hopefully it's not a sale or a meeting.
How do you think that someone can go about building a connection? So once they have like the third party link, or even if they, reach out and the person says, yes, we can be a connection, how do you think that they can continue to build that?
Great question. I love that you asked me that. So I wish more people would ask that because I when I started posting about that a couple months ago, I would get people that are like, "Oh, Chris, I'm just happy if 1% of my cold messages get accepted." And I thought, "Well, boy, that sounds like the definition of insanity. Why would you be okay with less than 1% success rate?" So what I would tell someone is if you're in more of a sales role or maybe you're an entrepreneur who just needs to get more meetings to close more clients, there's a couple ways you can go about it. I don't recommend, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but what's worked for me is not sending a message. Now, whether someone responds to that or not, there's a couple ways you can go about getting on their radar. And I think that's the first important thing is they have to kind of build a familiarity with you. So rather than going high and throwing 100 darts against the wall every day, pick 5 to 10 people that you want to connect with on LinkedIn. Key decision makers, like do your homework and make sure this is the right individual. And then what I'll do is say it's a woman who's a marketing director at a company that I'd love to work with. I will go to her profile and I'll try to find some linkage. Linkage would be, did we go to the same university? Were we both board members for Big Brothers Big Sisters? Are we in a similar group on LinkedIn or Facebook? Is she, I'm a sports fan, so is she into the teams that I'm into?
Mhm.
Does she have a similar connections? Like maybe she's connected with one of my best friends I went to college with. Whatever linkage you can get. And then I'll kind of make note of that. And if I do decide, like if she does decide to connect with me, I'll shoot her a message and be like, hey, thanks so much for connecting. I see that XXX, right? And so I
Mhm.
kind of just build this warm level introduction with her. Here's what I do. Actually, I wouldn't even say here's what I do. Just say, hey, I noticed about your profile. I thought we had a lot of, here's X reasons to connect. And then I would make sure that I go through her profile and I might like a couple of posts or comment.
Mhm.
And I would, if you have something to say, put a thoughtful comment or a thought provoking comment that would encourage her to respond. And
Yes.
hey, like, I really love what you said about this. What about X? Or number 5 stood out to me because I do this too. And all of a sudden, you have this warm level introduction. If you follow that individual, like ring their bell on LinkedIn, you'll get a notification every time they post. And then you can be one of the first people to like and comment. And then when you do finally go to say, hey, I noticed that you need some help with your social media, it won't feel like a super cold message. But I'm going to
Mhm.
go one step further is because I'm a marketing consultant, and let's just say, like, because I love to do website builds for clients, I might go to their website and I might do a scan through Google Page Speed. And if the report comes back mediocre to below average, I'll do a Loom video, a screen record that's like 2 minutes long. And I'll do a complete analysis and say, hey, huge opportunity here. I notice your page speed is a little slow. It's not mobile friendly. Um, if this is something you're interested in fixing, my company does stuff like that. Would love to have a conversation. And I'll throw in, because I always do, no sales pitch whatsoever included, but we just love to explain this a little bit more. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden, I've just added so much value that hopefully the person says, yeah, you know what? I'd love to hear that from you. And then after the meeting, there's probably at least a 50% chance they're going to ask for a proposal on how your company can help them with that. So
Yes.
that's one example. There are a lot of other ways to do it. You can certainly ask other people if you have mutual connections to make an introduction. But
Mhm.
I like to kind of start by warming the water, if you will, before you boil it, is just get that person familiar. And I've also had other people when they connect with me, they'll send me a GIF or a message like, "Hey, thanks so much for connecting. What was it about my profile that stood out to you?" Or,
Mhm.
"Hey, interested to see what you're going to post, and I see that we both talk about marketing." And it's again, it's putting the social back in social media because
Yes.
so often people use social media one of two ways. They use it passively, meaning they go through social, they scan, 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 they don't do anything, and if you don't do anything on social media, meaning you don't engage, why would you expect anyone to engage with your content? See, that's
Mhm.
a reciprocation factor. That'd be like going to a networking event, handing your business card out to everybody, telling them what you do, not listening to them for them to tell you what they do, and then leaving. And
Yes.
that's a good way to get blocked or unfriended.
Mhm.
Now, if you go through social media and you kind of go that way, but even further, meaning all you do on social media is try to sell people, you'll probably get blocked by a lot of people. So you can't use it exclusively as a tool to sell. You can't use it exclusively to be passive. But if you want to get engagement on your content and you want to build these relationships, because, oh, by the way, sales is mostly relationship based, you have to
Mhm.
focus on building relationships and being social with people, which again, oh, by the way, takes a lot of work and time. And most people are not willing to do that. And that's why they go to the spam route, cold message, cold message, cold message. I'll tell you the funny story to kind of wrap this up is I noticed that when I started building my personal brand, maybe back in October, and I wish I would have done this sooner. It took about 3 or 4 months. And then what I found was that I was getting people that started to message me like, "Hey, Chris, I saw you posted on something about social media strategy. I saw you posted about connecting with people on LinkedIn. Can you tell me more about how you do that or what you do as a service?" And I was like, oh my gosh, this is now like the tables have turned. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, I don't really have to cold message people anymore because now I have people coming to me. Now it's not quite like turning the water on where it's, hundreds of people come through the floodgates, but it was a change of pace where all of a sudden I would get one or two people messaging me a month about my services.
Mhm.
And that is where a lot of the hard work starts to pay off. And
Yeah.
that snowball effect will continue to accumulate if you can do that at scale over months. So, sorry, Leslie, that was a very long answer for
No,
probably what
it
was an
was
easy question.
No, it was filled with wonderful information. One of the things that you said about LinkedIn is something that I often do, which is the finding someone that you want to connect with, whether it's because you want to have a future relationship with them or whether that they came up as someone in your feed and you're like, oh, they are an interesting person. But especially with the going on their profile and liking and commenting, reposting with your own thought on it, or just saying, I love how this person did this. And then you can always at them. It reminds me of how social media was, how Facebook and how Instagram used to be in the very beginning. And so it was much
Hmm.
easier to connect with people. It was much easier to get the attention. Right now, if you go to other platforms such as Instagram or TikTok or YouTube, you're fighting. It's just like maybe this will make somebody like me. Maybe I will be seen this way. But what I thoroughly enjoy about LinkedIn is the fact that you are in a space that if you are consistently posting, if you're consistently adding value, even if, and I tell people this all the time, you don't even have to be the one that is constantly creating content in the sense of it's yours and yours alone. You can honestly go
True.
and look at other people's articles that they've written or other things that they have posted. Maybe it was someone else's post that they reposted and then you reposted it, but you just reposted it with your own thoughts. It's a beautiful way to say, I'm still going to be social. I'm still going to be in the know. I'm still talking to people, and I'm adding my own thought, and it's an easier way to be seen and be noticed. And for you to say that you started building your own brand, like really consistently in October, and you're already seeing like the results that you're seeing, those are much faster results than if you went on other social channels as well. It's a really, really great place. And like I said earlier, I think a lot of people are intimidated by it. They're just like, I'm not really sure. It's like, is it too stuffy? What do I have to do here? But that goes back into research. Go and
Hmm.
spend an hour or two on LinkedIn and start looking at what would come up in your feed. Look at people that are in the industry that you're in and start looking at their profile and what they are actually posting, and then really look at the people who are consistently posting and the people who aren't. And that, I understand, it can be difficult. I myself suffer from this where it's just like you get busy and you're like, okay,
Hmm.
I have all this to do. I have these clients. And then that goes back into what you said earlier of making sure that you blocked out time to create the content that you need to make, but also respond and be social. If nothing else that you guys don't get today, don't forget to be social on social media. Don't forget to actually talk to people, reach out to people. Ask questions. People love to answer questions. Those are all really great things. But what you said was great. These are things that I tell my own clients. And I was just like, yes,
Good.
yes, that makes sense. Yes, yes, it's
Yeah. The other thing,
wonderful.
Leslie, is you are right. A lot of people are nervous. They're scared. They're wondering what people are going to think or say about the things that they
Mhm.
post, even if they're just resharing other content. And the one thing that I say to people is You can't run a business scared.
Mhm.
And whether you're scared of success, you're scared of failure, you're scared of what people are going to think when you post something, entrepreneurship isn't for you. Now, I will say we all go through phases of that, but the more you
Mhm.
do it, the more comfortable you get. But I'll say that you have to get past fear, because fear is just a momentary feeling. But the more you stand in fear, the longer you wait and think. And the more you think about something and wait means you're not taking action. And
Yes.
the longer it is until you take action, the more likely it is you will not take action. And so you just have to say, you know what? Screw it. I don't really care. I'm posting and I'm gonna do this, and you know what? Good things will happen. And I'll say this on LinkedIn too. It's a far more supportive and positive platform
Yes.
than all the others, and more people will celebrate you and your successes, even the small victories. So that's
Mhm.
one of the reasons I love it. Nobody's perfect, but nobody expects you to be perfect either.
Yes, and something else that I don't think a lot of us realize, I mean, obviously, it's different when it's your own situation. With everybody else, you can always see, it's like, "It's fine, it's okay." With you, you're like, "Oh my god, I feel like I failed." Um, I would say that people are actually a lot more forgiving, as you said,
Yes.
on LinkedIn than other sites. And people like the fact that you're real. They like the fact that, you made a mistake, or you came in and you're a little disheveled this morning and it isn't like perfectly curated content. People like to see that you're a real person. They also like to see you grow. And I think I think that's with every platform. There's something about seeing somebody at the start or maybe the middle of their journey, and then seeing how they were consistent and how they ended up becoming bigger or more well known. And so you feel a deeper connection to them as well. When you're like, wow, I remember just, 6 months ago they were saying this, and now they're on this person's podcast, or like now their book is like an Amazon bestseller, those types of things. So try not to be super hard on yourself, because you are only human. What's great about that is the fact that you get to continue to grow and learn. And as you know, that you learn more the more that you actually take in knowledge, and the more that you are in business for yourself, you're going to be like, I thought this worked, or maybe this did work at the time, until you found a better solution. So, get out there, start posting. I tell people, even if you're concerned about what to say, or I'm not sure if I have like a whole article's worth of something, if you're reposting something, you can repost part of what an article was, and you're like, "This part was really great. I love it." And then it has the whole article
Yep.
there. And that's all you said. And you brought attention to something that someone else worked really hard on. And that in itself is giving somebody else credit, and it's making them feel good, and it makes them feel like, wow, what they're doing is impacting people in their industry. So, you know, we just have to get over ourselves. We just have to,
Yeah.
go out there.
Leslie, I'll say something kind of interesting is I wrote a book a while ago, and one of the things I put in the book was there's a chapter about how I don't think perfect exists. And
Mm,
for those people who do, they focus so much on making something perfect. It ends up taking so much time. And
yes.
sometimes we get to this point of diminishing returns where it's actually worse because we put too much thought and we it's paralysis by analysis
Mhm.
into something. And so I always say, and I learned this from a company called Quicken Loans. They have something called Quicken Loan isms where they say good is good enough, and they don't
Mm,
want you to put four times as much time into something only for it to be 5% or 10% better. So know that nobody is perfect, but nobody expects you to be perfect. And when you can get over the thought of things needing to be perfect, and you
mm,
say, hey, you know what, this is the best I can do for now, put it out there. Whether that's a product you're launching, whether that's a piece of content you're putting out there, a job offer, just be the best you can be. But you don't have to overextend that. And that was something I had to learn a long time ago. And when I started to just say, hey, you know what, this is really good. that to me is like the pinnacle. That really good is great. And
Yeah,
I don't want to be perfect, because then you start having people hold you to this new level of expectations that's
yeah.
not sustainable.
Yeah, and I think people connect with authenticity,
For sure.
and as you were saying, if you are perfect and that's what you're trying to be all the time, then you actually end up making like some people feel like they can never attain that and so they won't even look at your stuff because they can't relate to you, right?
Right.
So allowing yourself to be human and allowing yourself to do like good is good enough and like I'm going to focus on continuing to create content, continuing to put it out there, continuing to be knowledgeable about my field as much as I can be. That is what matters because the truth of the matter is a business owner is coming to you and you are also a business owner, right? So
Right.
you're both at different stages in your journey. You're both learning. You might be able to learn something from your client just as though they are able to learn things from you. And it really is collaborative. So what book? You said you wrote a book. Tell our audience where they can
Yeah,
get
I think
it.
I've got one right here as I go to
Oh,
reach
he
for it.
has it. He's ready. He's ready.
Yeah, it's called King of the Mental Swing: How to Win at Golf and Life by Thinking Differently. And grew up around the game of golf as something that I loved, and never really had the interest in being a professional at any level. But I'd been around it enough and played it enough to know that one of the reasons I was never as successful as I wanted to be was because of my mindset and how I
Mm,
let, frustration and anger get the best of me, or um, I would let other things in life, other stresses carry through, and that impacted the way that I played. And then I realized that, oh, by the way, you can also let things like stress and busyness get in the way of relationships and even good conversation, even being successful at work. And so I realized that a couple of things. I didn't ever want to be known as the guy who people would say, "Hey, how are you? How are you doing?" And then be like, "Oh, I guess I'm just okay. I'm not that great." You always bring that negativity with you. So I
mm,
realized a long time ago that I am in 100% control of my actions, my thoughts, the things that come out of my mouth, the attitude and the outlook I have, and about 98% of what happens to me in life. And so, and I really do believe that. And I started saying, like, I do see the glass as being half full, but I didn't walk the
mm,
walk and talk the talk. And so I noticed that as I started to visualize what success would look like, whether I was playing golf, whether I was working on a project for work or entrepreneurship, that was a big part of it. When I started to talk about it, like, yeah, I think this is really going to work out. I started to say those things. I started to adapt self talk. And then I put together, and this is what bleeds through to what I do now is I said, success in golf, just like success in business or anything, is like a recipe. The way you may run your business may be slightly different than the way I run mine. But at the end of the day, we're going to do a lot of the same things alike. So the
mm,
core fundamentals, the strategy, the execution, the time management, the even self care, even I mean, you go on and on and on about building relationships and just being on top of things and prioritizing learning. So getting better
mm,
for yourself, and all these components are pretty true for anybody who's highly successful or highly wealthy. And so I just said, hey, here's the framework, here's the recipe. So here are all the ingredients, and then here are all the utensils, and then it's up for you to follow that. And then the one example I make is that if you travel the world looking for recipes for a pot of chili, you literally get a million different variations: spicy,
yes.
not spicy, noodles, no noodles, ground beef or ground chicken. The list goes
Mhm,
on and on. And the answer is there is no right or wrong answer. It's you have to build it for your audience. So
mm,
are you serving it to kids? Because if so, you're probably going to want to stay away from the spicy or certain things. You build it for what your family likes. And the same is true in this is let's lay out all the options you have for you, and then you build the recipe based on what you want to achieve. And so it's 70% about life and maybe 30% about golf, but it really helps people put together a recipe for themselves. And a lot of that just comes with controlling how you think, how you talk, how you act, visualization, and implementing that strategy ultimately, which is exactly what I do with my clients in marketing now.
That is so true. That is actually what, so much, so much. Felt that, felt that. That is mindset is what changed my life, especially in 2017. Um, I was very depressed. I was classified as having massive depression, and I was suicidal.
Oh,
And it took me, really getting to a low point and then going to therapy. But what helped me during that time was I was constantly listening to affirmations. I was constantly listening to
mm,
things because I realized that my self talk was part of the issue of why I had gotten into that place. And so fast forward now, it's 2023, and it's like I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm whole. Have been able to have my own podcast, I have my own business. And one of the talks I give, I definitely talk about marketing all the time. But when I'm also hired to do other talks, motivation, I always talk about mindset because I know from personal experience what it's like when you are in that deep hole. And then how, when you change your mind, your subconscious mind, what's being replayed over and over again, and what you really feel, when you start to have the tools to change that, everything in your life changes. Absolutely everything. So it goes from, how your relationships are with your family, how you are at work, how you are in business. And then when you continue to tell yourself this, even if it feels like a lie in the beginning, if you're normally
and it
like,
will.
it does. And but the thing is, like, what I was told by, my therapist, and what I firmly believe and what I know to be true is, basically, you had a habit of believing and thinking one way, and now we're giving you a new habit. And in the
Right.
beginning, it's the same thing as exercise. You hate it. Your body screams at you. It's like, "What are you doing? Why are you trying to kill me?" And then you continue on, and mindset is extremely important because as an entrepreneur, you're going to have fat and lean months. You're going to have times where you're doing
Yep.
really great, and you're going to have times where you're going to have to work a little more, give a bit more. And it feels like what you're toiling in that field, it feels like you're never going to see your harvest come. But when you
Feels like
have the
that.
prop yeah, when you have the proper mindset, and when you also surround yourself with other entrepreneurs, when you can actually talk to them, when you can say, "Hey, I need help with this," or "Is this normal?" It really helps when you also can create a community. So, Chris, you have given us a lot of really great advice. And see, this is exactly why I wanted him on the show, you guys, like marketer to marketer. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Where can people find you if they need somebody with your expertise?
Yeah, I'm happy to tell you. But can I go back to the that
Yeah,
that conversation just
100%.
for a minute?
We're gonna
So
rewind.
I do have a chapter in my book about affirmations. I think that's important. But you
Mhm,
mentioned something that's really important is that when people fall into a rut, and I like to think that we have ups and downs. It doesn't mean it's permanent. It's okay. It's actually very normal to go into those peaks and valleys. The valleys are the hard ones. You just have to make sure they're momentary. But I think a lot of the reasons people get stuck and they get stuck for more than a couple of days is a couple of things. One, we don't have a strategy, which we talked a lot about in the beginning,
mhm,
so I won't go there. But they also tend to not have a very strong vision. And I'll give you an
mhm,
example is I was working with a client not too long ago, actually very successful. But I would ask things like, what does success look like this year? And it's like, well, I want more sales, I want more downloads. I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, well, just more growth. I said, well, that's not a vision. Well, what are your goals? The same. I said, well, goals are not the same as a vision. And do you have this in document format? No, it's all in my head. I said, well, that's not a goal. That's not a strategy. That's not a vision. And you're just mashing them all together into like one sentence in your head.
mhm,
And so, one of the things I do with my clients is try to be very clear about your vision. And your vision could be a part of your short-term goals, but I would just ask yourself this is what do you want to achieve this year? And
mhm,
unfortunately, a lot of people can't answer that. I mean, yeah, they say, "Yeah, I want to be successful and I want to launch my business." And I'm like, "Okay, but put that into a paragraph and then tell me, I will look back at the end of the year and I'll be happy because I achieved X.
Mhm.
I had 10 clients. I made 100,000 in revenue. I launched a business with my wife or spouse, whatever. And so vision is very, very important. But I'll go back to one more thing that I think is important. And you said the word exercise. I'm going to use the phrase self care. So when we want to be our best self, whether that's mindset, whether that's mentality, whether that's just all around, one of the things that and granted, I'm on quite a few marketing podcasts, but I keep going back to this is when you take care of yourself, you can take care of others better.
Yes.
So, as me being a family man, I've got a wife, dogs, kids, got a lot of stuff going on. I realized 'cause I had a health issue several years ago, and I started eating better. I
Mhm.
started being more consistent and very in tune with sleeping. And I would make sure that I'm in bed by 10 o'clock, 10:30. I'm getting my 7 to 8 hours of sleep.
Mhm.
That's what I need personally. And then I also started to do things that would help me de-stress or decompress, which was exercise. I exercise 5 days a week, even if it's for 15, 20 minutes. I still get my exercise in. I'll do things like play golf because I love to be outside. It's just a
Mhm.
way to find my inner zen. If you for you maybe it's going to the spa, getting a massage. Those are all self-care things that you have to be selfish to be selfless. So
Mhm.
it feels really good to take care of yourself, even if it is going to the spa and spending money or if it's not spending money. Find the things that help you do that because when you can be whole, you can bring your best self to your clients, you can bring your best self to your family, to your
Yes.
personal relationships. And it is amazing how, when I started doing all these things, eating cleaner, eating more consistently, fasting intermittently, my mind is sharper, and I used to be
Yes.
Mr. Forgetful. I, I just have a more clear vision. I feel like I have more purpose. Not that I really didn't have that before, but I just think like things feel more aligned. I feel better, and I cannot recommend that enough for people. And I do believe that by taking care of yourself, you can eliminate a lot of these peaks and valleys, and you can be more consistent because you don't want the really high ups, but you also don't want the downs. You just want to be good. You want to have that flow. And I really believe a lot of it starts with you inside.
Oh, 100%. I That's what I had to learn. I had to learn how to set boundaries. That helped
Big one.
me when it came to setting boundaries, even when I was working a 9 to 5, and what I was going to do and what I wasn't going to do. And because I set those boundaries, because I learned how to have strategic no's, I was able to go from working basically as admin to becoming head of marketing in a 3-year time period because I had the tools available to me. And that's why, going back to what I said, it was when I started taking care of myself, when I started changing my mind, is when everything got better because I realized I was like, oh, this isn't serving me. This isn't making me happy. I know what the lowest of the low is, and I never ever want to go back there. So, how can I make sure that I stay in a good place, you know?
Right.
And when it comes to business and entrepreneurship, something that definitely, has helped me is actually doing this podcast, being
I
able
bet.
to speak with other business owners, especially when you're brand new, when you're just like, okay, so let's talk about taxes or let's talk about this. And it's really nice to see people that are in all different stages because you're always going to have something or you're going to be around people that you're doing better than, and you're also going to be around people who are doing better than you. So you're always like reaching behind to pull up, and you're reaching forward to be pulled up. And being able to meet other marketers like you to know that it's like, oh, that's a really good idea. I can implement that into my business. I can tell my clients this, or also to be able to say, "Yep, I do the same thing and it works. It works." You're having
Hmm.
2 people here telling you the same thing is always a really, really great thing as well. So, But yes, Chris, tell us, where can we find you? How can
All
we
right.
get
I'll,
your
I'll do that
services?
now that I'm done talking. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I get a little long winded at times.
Same,
So, if
same.
you're interested in connecting, I'm on LinkedIn, as I mentioned. I love to connect with people and help them. So, if you have a question about anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
Mhm.
On LinkedIn, it is LinkedIn /in/ Chris B. Burns. Otherwise, if you're interested in anything that I have going on, I do have a personal website, which is iamchrisburns.com. And you can find my Calendly link. I'm giving away free 15-minute business audit or marketing audit if you're interested in just hopping on a call and wanting to pick my brain. No sales pitch whatsoever included, just an opportunity to connect, collaborate, get to know each other. And then I do have some digital downloads. I'm offering I'll call it a LinkedIn playbook yeah, I think that's what it's called. You can download a cheat sheet to learn how to fully optimize your profile. Otherwise, I do have some services where it's done for you as well.
Mhm.
And so visit my site, check that out. And then I do have a marketing business called Lux Level Media or luxlevelmedia.com. And the final thing I'll throw in is I did recently launch a leadership podcast called Hustle Nation. So that's on YouTube and all the major streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes, etc.
That's awesome. And we will have those links in the show notes so you can definitely connect with Chris. Chris, thank you again for being on the show. And you guys make sure that you tune in next week because there will be more marketing advice as well as other entrepreneurs on the show helping you make it in this business world because we all need some help. Also, do not forget to sign up for my newsletter. It comes out weekly with marketing tips, who's going to be on the podcast, and other cool freebies. And right now, I am also having a coupon in my newsletter where you can get half off my marketing program your first 30 days. So make sure you sign up, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.